Hey, Brian, can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent.
Al should be joining us shortly. He's trying to
All
pull
right.
himself away from watching a movie with his wife, is my understanding.
Oh, such a bummer. That's all right. I was helping out with math homework with our third grader just before I wandered into our basement here.
Do you homeschool, or we just help him with homework?
Oh, we're just helping with homework. We don't homeschool.
So do you have the all the chat room information? Did I'll send you
I
that?
don't. Am I supposed to join the chat room?
It's up to you. It's completely optional if you want to
I do.
that or not. But we do have a chat room, and that allows people to actually ask questions, and then we'll see the questions in the chat room and then turn around and ask you. Or more likely, Al will ask you, because he usually ends up asking most of the questions.
There we go. Let's do that. Bring up a history page. I don't really need volume on that device. Oh, sure. There I see you, but I don't see you in Skype. That's nice.
Yeah, I can only stream my video one place, unfortunately.
Okay, make that window wider. Not like I really need to watch myself. So is the chat room not up, or am I missing something on this machine?
If you go to live.powerscripting.net, you'll hit a page that has both the video and the chat. We don't do the actual chat on YouTube.
Oh, okay. I was about to say I can see the video, but the chat.
Yeah, we have it in. We have a IRC embedded on that page with our IRC channel, which is how we do the.
Okay, because the little chat window is empty for me, so. Which might be because I'm using a Surface.
I think we've had people successfully use Surfi. What's the plural?
Surfi.
Surfaces.
It's Surfi number 2. It's a rather interesting Doppler effect going on, though.
Oh yeah, you'll probably want to mute the video, audio. Al's in the chat room, but he's still showing as away on Skype, which they changed the interface on me again. Which is fine. They can change it all they want as long as they give me good quality. I'll deal with it. Which are coming through loud and clear, which is wonderful.
Excellent. God, there's actually people in the chat room. That's amazing.
Okay, here's how.
Hello.
Hey, man.
Hey. How's it going?
It's going pretty well.
Brian, are you there?
I'm here.
Excellent. The technology works most of the time. How's it going?
Good.
And how's your weather? Have we reached temperature parity?
Where to look. Actually, we have, out here in the Seattle area, we have actually warmed up, and those of you to the east are like freezing your nubs off.
Yes.
I think.
Yes, we are.
My wife called her mother today, and she's just outside Detroit, and they hit 3.
Oh, man.
Oh.
Yeah,
I mean, it was bad here, but it was, not. It was like 14, I think, was a low or something like that.
Yeah, we stayed below freezing for the high, but it's 24 and falling right now.
Yeah, we've had our 3 weeks below freezing for the year, so we should be done.
That is good.
I think, what do we get, about 3 days below freezing normally in your house, something like that?
I don't remember that one. I know that we get 40 inches of rain, which Seattle folks seem to be surprised to hear that number.
The difference is, though, we get it in big chunks. We don't get it like spread out over the course of every day.
Right. Plenty of sunshine.
Which I think Rope Mill Park is still closed, last I heard.
Oh, really?
Because of flooding.
Yeah. My parents' pasture was flooded at the farm. Quite.
I bet that's always fun for them.
Yes. My brother-in-law went to harvest the cabbages, and my mom posted a picture the other day of him walking into the pasture with waiters.
Were the cabbages floating? Like, it's go out there with a net.
Yeah, that would be funny. No, I think it was he had to use the waiters to get to where the cabbages were. They were not actually underwater. You know where the pond is?
Nice.
Do you remember?
Yes, I do remember where the pond is.
The pond is where the flooding
pond
happens.
is not that big.
Well, it was when it flooded.
Oh, well, that's a big field sitting next to that pond.
Yeah.
Oh,
like
Lars.
the driveway area.
I was responding to Lars in the chat room. It doesn't take a half inch. It literally just takes a threat around commute time.
Oh,
But
yeah. It's the same thing here.
I was about to say a half inch of snow. I think we had an inch a few years back, which turned my wonderful 20-minute commute into 2.5 hours.
Nice.
And people were parking their cars on the main highways, on I-5 and on 405 around the area, and they were getting out and walking.
Yeah, we had an incident last year here in Atlanta that made national news. The guys I work with, one guy, it took him 9 hours to get home. The other guy didn't make it home till the next day. He spent the night at a friend's house and ended up walking a mile. And yeah, thank God I worked from home that day.
Oh, that was lucky.
Yeah, extremely.
All right, how do I share this link?
The time delay on the video feed versus the chat
Yeah,
is very interesting versus the audio.
Yeah, you have to kind of ignore it. If you want to look at us like talking while we're talking live, then you use the Skype window. But otherwise, yeah, it's just a flavor for us.
You can't see the video on Skype.
I don't see you guys.
Okay.
I just see a logo in the Skype window, so I'm trying to actually look at the right machine here when I talk. So
Yeah, I follow you now.
Because I can only send video to the OBS software. I can't send video out to different places.
Gotcha.
Which is kind of lame in 2015 that I can't send video to 2 places. Oh well.
it would be 2 streams.
Yeah. I guess
And
I
we can't cross the streams.
I've got enough cameras. I could hook up I could set another camera.
There you go.
Hold on, I have to compare maps with being in Google. I want to see who has better satellite coverage here of my parents' farm.
So what were you watching? What movie?
This is important, guys. Taken 2.
I didn't know there was a Taken 2.
Yeah, there's about to be a Taken 3, in fact.
Ah.
Keep up, dude.
So who's in Taken 2?
Same people, you know, roughly.
So obviously they weren't taken.
There it is. Have you seen the first movie, Brian?
I haven't, no.
Okay. You know who, what's the name of the guy? The star guy. Shoot. Really distinctive voice. Help me out, Jonathan.
Morgan Freeman?
Other guy. Hold on. Jeez. Liam Neeson.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Liam Neeson, okay.
Yeah.
That's right. I remember seeing ads for the first one. He was talking about he has a particular set of skills or something.
Exactly. That's the one. All right. I think I like Bing's tiles better. Yeah. They've got a better picture here. So how do I share it? There's the share button. All right. Okay. Thank you, chat room. Okay. So the if you look at the map link that I just dropped, and you see the pond in the picture, that's the pond that basically flooded over most of everything to the right. You know, most of the way to where you can see the plowed section. So the plowed section was not underwater. But in order to get to the plowed section, you had to walk through a pond. If that makes sense.
Oh, so did Mill Creek flood too? Or just that pond?
Yeah, no. It's pretty deep there, the sides.
Okay.
I don't think it came up. It was just the pond. Anyway, we could podcast and stuff if you guys want to. Sorry about the whole map thing there. Okay, Brian, I have your blog up. I did see your email. I want to get the Citrix one up as well, though. Was it like blogs.citrix.com or something?
Citrix.com, I don't know. They changed it on me. It was citrix.com/blogs, and they did blogs.citrix for a while.
Okay. If
I put it on the Citrix side, I put it on my personal blog, but not everything on my personal blog ends up on my Citrix blog.
Okay. What if I blog citrix.com/author/Brian EH?
Yeah.
I mean, is that decent? That finds everything right.
I think that'll pull it up, yeah.
Did you make show notes, Hal, for 293?
Oh, no, I totally didn't. Where was I? Sorry.
This is 293.
Guys. Wow.
Because 292 hasn't been posted yet because it's a news show.
Oh, yeah, you're doing that now.
Yeah.
I remember.
We'll see how that works out.
293, maybe. That means I'll have to look closely at the feed then. Okay, I'm making show notes right now. Just another moment, and then we will get started. People who are listening to us chatter. Episode 293, you said?
Yeah, 293.
Hey, Brian, how do I pronounce your last name properly?
Ehlert, long E, silent H.
All right, yeah, no problem. I got that. It's easy. That's exactly
old German
like
name. Yeah.
What is it? Mine
it's
too.
An old German. Yeah.
Mine as well.
Really?
Yeah.
All of it. Wow. It's kind of cool. I don't think we ever talked about that, Jonathan. My dad was actually born in Germany somewhere. I don't know where. Not in Rotenburg, Germany, but, somewhere.
Oh, I didn't know Rotenburg was a city.
Yeah, totally is.
That's cool.
Yeah, in Germany. All right. I have shared the show notes with you. So you should see those shortly.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. I have not shared them with you, Brian. Sorry.
That's fine.
Actually, I was a guest on the Cloudcast podcast. For anyone who has not heard of it, go check it out. It is actually quite cool. Cloudcast. Yeah, the cloudcast.net. And they actually did give me their show notes.
Oh, really?
He kind of made a bunch of... He did research and like actual show prep, and I was joking with him about that.
What is this show prep of which you speak?
Yeah, what is this? What is this show prep? But he had like, topics and, a bit of an outline. I don't do that, so. Anyway. Okay. I'm ready to go. And the audio sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it does.
Are you ready? All right, everybody ready? Chat room, ready? Check. Thank you for joining us.
Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year, exactly. And if those of you in the chat room wish to add your commentary, then please put a couple of hash marks in front of it so that we are sure to see them. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. Okay. Tonight on the PowerScripting Podcast, we are pleased to welcome Brian Ehlert. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, Brian, I know that you're a Hyper-V MVP for a while, right? 2007 or something?
Yeah, since 2008. So that's when I got the award. So essentially 2007, yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So I know that you're at Citrix now, and we're going to talk lots of about what you've been blogging and working with, the projects you're working on at Citrix. But why don't you give us a little bit of your background before we get into that?
Oh, my. Let's see. Prior to Citrix,
So this is not supposed
I
to be
worked
the hard question, by the way.
This is not supposed to be the hard question? Okay. So prior to Citrix, I worked in IT, a network and systems engineer way back in the NT351 days, NetWare, all that kind of fun stuff, Windows 3.11.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I was an IT guy for an optometry and ophthalmology firm, a contact lens mail order company, and bank. And then back in 2006, I ended up with Citrix after my wife got a job with Microsoft and brought us out here to the Pacific Northwest.
Wow.
And yeah, I kind of fell into the role that I'm in. So I actually work in a division in Citrix called Citrix Labs. And
Okay.
we call ourselves like an applied R&D. So we work on usually future products. So we're generally working on something that's a year to 3 years out. We've done shorter term projects as that's come out. And our office being here in Redmond has a history of focusing on Microsoft integration. So my Hyper-V MVP grew out of Hyper-V research work way back from the original beta, SCVMM from its original beta, and a number of other things over time. So my specialty has kind of been virtualization for the most part.
Wow.
Gotcha.
So how long have you been an MVP?
Literally
2008,
from 2008. So
Wow.
and they keep renewing me. So obviously I'm doing something right.
Right on. Do you know Patrick Rouse?
No, not off the top of my head.
Okay, he was a terminal services MVP for many years.
There's like 5,000 of us, right?
Yeah, well, you never know. I know most of the PowerShell MVPs.
Yeah, that's true, but he's not terminal services. He's Hyper-V.
Yeah.
Those are two different, distinct, different disciplines.
I need to reboot my brain. I don't know what my problem is.
And
It's okay.
they
We'll
are.
wait.
There's still virtualization if you think of it from that standpoint. You got machine virtualization, you got session virtualization. So
Yeah.
I grew up with WinFrame and MetaFrame and presentation server, and that was probably a lot of what got me my position where I am now. So I implemented
Now,
all that
Citrix-
stuff back in the day.
Citrix folks usually are terminal services people.
Right.
That
That's
is
true.
kind of the core there.
I was thinking of XenDesktop. I think that's why.
Yeah.
Went down there.
No,
Do you know?
that's relatively new.
Okay, yeah. Do you know Jason Conger? He's also a Terminal Services MVP.
See, you know all these big terminal services names. So, actually, I'll ask you this: have you heard of the Thin List?
No, I have not.
So the Thin List is this really old, archaic news service. That was quite honestly where a lot of us used to congregate before things got a little more formal. It's an old listserv for terminal services. It's been around for over a decade now. It's been around for quite a long time, and that's where actually I know a lot of these names from originally. Is from there.
Did you access it via a terminal client?
Ah, that's funny. No, but I did used to have. I did used to have a Usenet, a Telnet account on Nix in the University of Denver back when I was in college, and that was the only way I could get to Usenet News. Is I would have to Telnet out to Nix from Michigan in order to get to news. In fact, the universities didn't even give us email addresses back then, so
I remember that.
Was it Gopher and Archie and Lynx?
Exactly. Links, so you could browse the web without pictures.
Yep, that was. Well, I'm glad we are where we are today. It's gotten easier and better, and all that stuff. We have full moving video right now. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I wonder if my Mosaic book is still at my parents' house.
I'm sure that's worth nothing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, now you're all just showing how old you are. It's really all you're accomplishing.
Well, I started around the time you did as well. NetWare and NT351, and I did do some old Metaframe stuff as well.
Yeah, I see somebody mentioned a PPP connection. We used to have a parrot that would tweet our modem because it would hear it so often. So it would our modem would dial up, and the parrot in the other room would actually be mimicking the modem sound.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right, I hate to do this, but I'm gonna have to pull us out of the old guys reminiscing about ancient technology. So sorry. All right, reset. Citrix. Okay, Citrix Labs. You do stuff. Hyper-V. Okay, yeah. So when you got into Hyper-V, it was not that great. Yes.
Well, it was barely a product. So, before I joined Citrix, I was actually VMware just recently sent me an email that my VMware certification is about to expire. It's ESX 2.5 and vCenter. Virtual Center 1. And I'm like, ooh, really? It actually is still valid. So yeah, Hyper-V was really bad at the beginning. And it quite honestly, they've come quite a long ways in a relatively short period of time when you compare them to Xen and the contribution going on there, and you compare them to VMware and how long they've been around. There's a number of products out there, but Hyper-V's gone gangbusters. But yeah, it was pretty bad. And I remember in the beginning, actually, I got my MVP from my original nomination from Simon Perriman back in the day because he was in charge of clustering. Yeah, and I was the only guy that was responding in the forums in regards to high availability because I had a background in clustering and none of the other VM, quote-unquote, MVPs that were hanging around in the forums at the time knew anything about it.
That's because clustering was scary back then.
It was, and it was painful, and it was wrought with danger and death and everything else. And the only reason I ever learned clustering was because the company I was working for at the time, mail order, got bought by 1-800 Contacts, and like 2 days after I quit. But we had a power supply. The chip on a power supply exploded on our one server. And next thing I knew, I had a budget, and I was building a cluster for Navision back in the day. This was before Microsoft bought them, but we were the first in North America, I was told by the integrators.
Wow. So the relationship with Citrix and Citrix's relationship with Microsoft goes back as long as all of us have been in IT.
Yes. Yeah, there's a long relationship back to that original modified NT351 kernel multi-win.
Yeah, if I recall, I want to say that they were one of the first people to like license the source code of Windows or something like that. Am I misremembering that?
Yeah,
I could be making that up, but I know that it was
relationship was at that point in time. So NT4 Terminal Server Edition was basically Citrix giving multi-win back to Microsoft. I do remember that. And that set in motion.
To talk to somebody from there back in the day. I'll bet there's some interesting things that happened around that time.
I know for a long time, Microsoft actually, not leased, but that's not the right word, but they got the terminal services technology from Citrix, right? They licensed it from Citrix for years and years.
Yeah, well, it wasn't actually, my understanding of the history is it wasn't actually a license. Citrix did the whole multi-win, and through an agreement actually ended up giving it back to Microsoft.
And they kept ICA, which is what Paul is pointing out in the chat room.
Right, ICA, the protocol. And that's why Microsoft had to, before you know it, had to work on RDP and all that kind of jazz. So, which the two protocols are actually pretty similar when you start to look at them and look at what they do and what the functionality is.
So, what are the products that you work with on a common frequent basis today of Citrix's? I know Hyper-V obviously, but
actually I could. So I normally don't talk about the projects that I work on, but some of these are so old and then the work's gone so far past that it doesn't really matter anymore. Myself and one developer in our office. So I'm technically a tester. I'm technically a test engineer, although my day-to-day job, lately I've played more developer and program manager than I have tester. But we're a relatively small group. There's about 18 of us or so. And so one of the first projects that I was on, we were looking at Hyper-V, looking at where it was and where it was going and whether or not we wanted to integrate with the platform, and that's where I got involved, because that's an aspect of the work that I do, is to evaluate things and do them. So we started doing load testing and whatnot, and SCVMM came around, and we started building integrations. So we built the original XenDesktop integration with SCVMM for controlling SCVMM. We built that out of our office, handed it off to the product team. They productized it. We did a bunch of work with virtual channels in RDP and extending ICA. And so plug and play, as you know, plug and play with RDP, that's built on top of dynamic virtual channels, which we called it back in the day. So all that happens in the background. Way back when, you had to have special device drivers that had to be, they had to work with the protocol so that Microsoft could actually remote the device driver through the channel, and there was a bunch of other weird stuff. I worked on the SIM provider for XenServer, and that was so SCVMM. So this SCVMM used to manage XenServer.
Can manage. Okay.
Yeah, we built a SIM provider, and actually that was in, I'm trying to remember now, I believe that was 2008, 2009. I think that was about 2009 timeframe. And I built the entire test harness in PowerShell at that point in time, which, mind you, at that point in time, doing SIM work in PowerShell was painful.
Wow, redoing that would be simple today.
Yeah, there's
3, I think.
Yep. And there was a number of things. We did a bunch of work with OVF, and a lot of people don't know what OVF is anymore, Open Virtualization Format. It is not VMware's packaging format, by the way. So I did a bunch of work. I would
say that VMware is probably the only one that has really done anything with it. I mean,
VMware ran with it. Microsoft has not done anything with it. But if you look at the XML underneath Hyper-V, and if you look at the export formats for SCVMM, they are totally OVF compliant. Although although neither of the products say that they are actually developing to it, but they've never quote unquote tested and certified and all that kind of fun stuff. So at that point in time, I did a bunch of work on machine portability. So between platforms, what you needed to do, we came up with this little import routine that would take an OVF or an OVA, which is just an OVF wrapped up in a tar. And we'd take it out of VMware and we'd actually import it into Hyper-V.
Yeah.
And this is we released this out to the public back in 2009, and I still have people downloading this today.
Oh, that's
funny. actually using it. It won't work with Hyper-V past 2012.
Oh, what? They went and broke it.
WMI namespace change. So the virtualization namespace changed on 2012 is the only release of Hyper-V that could talk both V1 and V2. After that, there was a WMI change, but that's beside the point. All the original. So if you look at XenApp on Azure, you'll see actually a lot of my fingers all over that. Although my name's not on anything. Our original guide had this whole PowerShell deployment that got stolen. It got stolen from me by one of our marketing guys to put in the actual manual, which is kind of funny because he didn't tell me till afterwards.
Oh, that's nice.
Actually, I find after he told me that, I looked at it and I'm like, you didn't even correct my misspellings in the comments. I'm like, gee whiz. But so yeah, I've been involved in a lot of that stuff as well.
You followed Hyper-V the whole time. Kind of tracking its progress and
yep.
So it seems like the feature parity now. I mean, at this point, the hypervisor itself is somewhat of a commodity, and it's the management tools and the suites around them, which is where the differentiation is happening.
That's probably really started happening. Actually, about 4 years ago. Even before Hyper-V really got any credit as a platform, that movement had already started. VMware kind of started doing that. Zen Server, early on didn't have a real stellar management experience. But stuff moves on, stuff advances. But it's always been that management experience that's been the differentiator for the platform. VMware developed vCenter, back in 2004. I'm trying to remember here, 2004-ish. And back at that point in time, they even said that they recognized that, it wasn't Linux admins, it was Windows admins who were building VMs and managing VMs and whatnot. So they started doing that to kind of start to build that management experience around there. And then, SCVMM comes around and it has an entirely different management paradigm from everything that everybody knew. So even back then, they started to go through this composition, machine composition model that they have with their templates, where you layer in your OS, and then you layer on your OS settings, and then you layer in your applications through service templates. And that was actually some interesting work that I did there too. So why
don't you tell us more about that? Because I'm not familiar with this at all.
Okay, so there's this little URL here. Let me see if I can bring it up on this other machine.
Yeah, paste it somewhere. We'll drop it in the show notes.
I'll put it over here in the chat. So
Alrighty.
right there is basically, so this work is interesting because I can talk about this from beginning to end because it's essentially all my stuff. But here there is an SCVMM service template for XenDesktop. And literally we stand up a scaled out XenDesktop deployment and configure it. Because I know what the controllers of machines are, I know where your storefront server is, I know where your desktop machine, well, I don't know where your desktop machines are necessarily going to be because I don't make that assumption. I know where your director server is, which is the GUI front end for desktop management and monitoring. So we go through and we actually use SCVMM and its service template model and take a flattened server OS, take the ISO image, which is built into the resource, and a whole bunch of PowerShell scripts in the background, and install everything and set it all up, which was kind of fun.
Okay, so this is the project, and I think this is what I initially saw when we were talking about getting you on the show. This is the XenDesktop for the private cloud. Right.
And so there's three components to this. There's three things to this that I've developed. One is the SCVMM service templates, which with some of our field staff has actually gotten pretty good traction, and they use it with customers and whatnot, even though it's not an official product. It's still in technology preview. The Windows Azure Pack Gallery image, which that's a fun thing. So that doesn't do installation because Windows Azure Pack there's no relationship between the machines. We can't make any assumptions. So it's a one at a time deployment model, but that'll go through and it'll install the roles and whatnot. And then that led into desired state configuration, which I think are the desired state configuration provider is the one that actually caused you to pick up on me in the first place.
You're right.
Which that partly fits, partly doesn't fit. Which actually part of my job right now is to try to get a little more traction around that.
It's a good thing you came on here.
Actually, get more interest in that. But
so why did you do it?
Why?
Yeah, I mean, as opposed to the other ones.
So this is this whole, okay, so I mentioned I work in Citrix Labs, right? So a certain aspect of what we do is we build these prototypes. So part of this is we built these prototypes, which is partly internal, partly external, and then it's to say, are people really interested in it? So, Microsoft Research does stuff, but they're a hardcore research group, right? Mm-hmm. And we're a little closer to the product teams. We're a little closer to customers in a shorter time frame. So, and we just don't have the budget that research does. So we build stuff. We build on top of integrations. So, So DSCs kind of say, there's this whole DSC thing. Microsoft's running down this whole road of automation. They're definitely investing in this. It's something that'll work with any automation platform. We already have products that are trying to automate us. We've already done some of this automation work. I had done, back when Azure had the VM role, I actually stood up an entire XenApp environment in Azure with one click and had that all blow out in the background. That was actually kind of fun. And that was the non-persistent VM role. And then desired state was just kind of the latest iteration of that. So part of it is, meet with the product team, give them feedback on our perspective of DSC from the point of view of an ISV. So, because if we productize
You've had a chance to work with the PowerShell team around this?
Yeah, I met with them a few times, talked with them, worked through some issues with them. That's another aspect of what we do here. Kind of how MVPs get access to the product teams and whatnot. We can get access to the product teams too as a partner, as an ISV, and then we can start to do specific things. So, part of our deal as an ISV is Microsoft was putting out all these X modules for DSC, which is great, but we've got customers that we can't use these X modules. I can't build on top of these X modules because we can't guarantee that a customer can download them. We can't guarantee that a customer can trust them. We can't build upon them. So we've got to build on what's in the box and what ships with the OS. And then we start looking at other things, and it's our product, so we've got to be able to stand it up. We've got to, follow the mantra. Okay, what if a third party does this? Okay, so let's model it. Let's give it up here and commit to this and say, okay, we're a third party platform. Let's build on top of DSC. It's not just a Microsoft thing. It's not just a Windows OS thing. It's something that Chef could use. It's something that Puppet could use. It's something that our Scale Extreme folks could use. It's something that just about that we can drive through Azure as we move into this headless deployment model. As Microsoft continues to march to this composition model, which is the way platform services have worked in Azure, which is the way SCVMM's been going, which is the way Azure Pack continues to go. So it's just it served as a model to kind of build on top of all that stuff.
So what are your impressions of working with DSC so far?
At first, it's painful. Specifically just kind of wrapping your brains around the concept, getting used to the fact, I've worked with some people internally just to walk them through how it works. And quite honestly, we've got some traditional installation folks just getting used to the fact that there's this thing and it's executing within the target machine that you're installing, and it's running in the local machine security context, and it's not being driven by an outside orchestration engine necessarily, but it's being driven in among itself. So you run into timing issues, you run into configuration problems, you run into limitations with just what certain software has and what it can do. It's part of DSC. Everybody looks at DSC today and they see it as an installation engine, and it's more than that. It's the configuration part of it, which is where a lot of the early examples didn't happen. And it's still kind of working through that. But it's the fact that you could go through and you could make all these modifications, and you can treat it, build script sort of way if you want to think of it that way. At the same time, there's customers that are definitely interested in it because they're interested in DSC from a drift perspective. So it's resonating with people from the perspective of configuration drift, not necessarily deployment so much, but definitely from a drift standpoint.
Now, what all settings are you configuring with your DSC provider?
So this is where I'm going to fall short of what some people want, and
well, I mean, you got to start somewhere.
And this is where I'm actually looking for feedback. So right now, the DSC provider only does installation. Part of that is because some
installation of what piece?
Installation of any of the XenDesktop server roles.
Okay.
So we can stand up a controller, a storefront server, a director server, a XenApp box, or the XenDesktop version of XenApp. So a desktop VDI or a desktop multi-user server. So, or an RDSH host, if you want to call it that. So any of those
does that use terminal
roles,
services? I know terminal services MPPs.
Yes, it's remote desktop session host. It's not terminal services anymore. You got to keep up with the lingo. But we'll stand all that up, do the VDA. You can add a couple other lines in, and you can configure our desktop agent to call home to its controller. So you've taken care of the kind of the whole desktop side. as far as actually connecting the dots, I don't have all of the connecting the dots working with desired state yet, and some of that just has to do with the way that our products function. Just their historic installation model that they've worked through isn't always friendly to this type of deployment model. So you kind of need that external orchestration that sits above it to do some of those additional steps today.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, when I create my configuration document that I'm going to use to create my MOF, I add whatever Citrix roles I want this server to have, and that will install the software to support those roles, and then I have configuration options to configure it the way that I want it?
Right now you would use the resource, the XenDesktop resource that I built to perform the installation. And you could use just native DSC to do some of your other configuration.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's certain aspects, like I say, what we call a VDA, which is your desktop. That's our agent that runs within a desktop, whether it be a session host or whether it be a single user desktop. That's relatively simple. You go through the installation. It's actually the installation that DSC really helps out with, because the installer is really weird. It does a double reboot. And traditional deployment methodologies have a really hard time dealing with the fact that there's a double reboot. But with DSC, it just works.
Yeah.
And that's the really neat thing about that, because you just, in the set, I've just got it in there to do the test, and it's as long as it's not, it goes through the script and it double checks it, and it's not okay. So I'll pick up here. It goes through and reboots again. Oh, I picked it up, and it deals with that double reboot situation really fine. Where traditionally other engines have had a hard time with that.
So tell us kind of the outline of what you've created with the DSC module providers, and is it for certain versions of XenDesktop and so forth? Give us some of the function, the high level functionality and what you've provided.
I've developed it with XenDesktop 7.5. When some of my other work, somebody's dropped in XenDesktop 7.6 and it just works, and that's just because the product teams didn't change anything underneath me. Like I say,
what are you
the
using
DSC
to perform the automation? I haven't downloaded this and unwrapped it to see what you're connecting to. Do you guys have an API that you're exercising, or what exactly is it doing?
So the DSC provider actually there's specific scripts in the background, because I've got to do the test in a very certain way. Our products many of our products use a meta installer, so I can't use the package provider, for example, to do the installation, because it doesn't deal with what the meta installer does very well. So because that's how I started this whole exercise. I'm like, okay, can I do everything I need to do with just using the native stuff that's in the box, in the OS? And I got to the point where, no, I can't, because I can't test for if the package is installed correctly. I actually have to look through for make certain calls in order to find the packages in a certain way, because it installs a number of MSIs in the background, but that's actually not what I need to test for. I need to test that the meta installer actually finished and did its registration correctly, and it actually registers in a totally different way than what an MSI package does. So it's kind of working through all that, and then realizing that, oh, okay, well, now all of a sudden I'm in the land of a custom provider, and I've got to deal with the fact that this installed. It's just like my resource. I don't do a deinstallation. So if you say a role needs to be absent, I'm just not going to do anything, because I don't do a deinstallation, because I can't guarantee I can do a clean deinstallation. I actually can't guarantee that I can deinstall the correct role. So if you run the resource and you install a controller and a director server, which a lot of people would. They would assume that they're on the same box. I can install the two, but I can't selectively uninstall one away from the other, just because I've got no way to do a test that's reliable to do that.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
So that's where you get in. So when you start playing with DSC and you start looking at real applications that are out there today, and they don't, and they're legacy applications, they're not really built around a headless installation model, or they're not really built around an automation model. You find all kinds of strange stuff. I've had a number of bugs that I've submitted back to product teams where installers don't execute correctly because they're in a headless session. So it's actually something problems I was having with automation, because there were certain things that I could not do because it was a headless session. As soon as I logged in any way with an interactive shell, it would work. But running totally headless, it doesn't work. And you've run into all kinds of weird stuff like this.
There's probably stuff that needs to run in a user context and weirdness like that, I would think.
There's
stuff
part of the Explorer process.
Right, and or it was just coded that way, and it was never tested any other way. So
yeah,
it may have not had a reason.
Exactly, there was no reason for it. There's certain configuration things that I can't do from an automation standpoint, literally because of stuff like this. There's one function that does a key generation, and it only does a key generation in a specific way in a logged on user context, and I can't automate it.
Oh, yeah.
That's lame. I hate hitting things like that.
Yeah, that's where you end up doing crazy stuff like dropping down scheduled tasks that run when somebody logs in and all kinds of weirdness
and actually,
like that.
That's what I had done to a certain degree, but you get to that and it's like, okay, now this has gone from being something I'm proud of to being something that's kind of a hack. and
yes.
and at that point in time, like at this point in time, it becomes a hack. I can't give this to customers. That the hack part, no, they can't have the hack part.
Yeah, I was actually I had a project like that where it had gotten a little bit hacky, and I wasn't as proud of it as I used to be, and I had to go through that today because somebody had said, "Hey, Hal, weren't you involved in this project? From like 6 months ago?" Like, yes, I was. Thanks for reminding me.
Hang your head.
Yeah. So, how long have you been working on these this DSC module for XenDesktop?
The DSC module came after I did the SCVMM service template. Came after I did the Azure Pack Gallery image, and I actually spent the most of my time on it in just fiddling around with DSC, kind of initially wrapping my brain around it. But I would probably say to test it and make it solid and whatnot, I'd probably say about 6 months.
So,
and that's just to get it where it was reliable, and I knew it would work, and I knew it wouldn't fail, and I could use it in different scenarios, and it would recover and deal with everything.
So, have you been tracking the drops from Microsoft, the WMF packages, to kind of follow what they're doing whenever they have new code out?
Not that closely.
Just the reason I ask is because, of course, there have been changes in functionality in DSC.
Oh, you're right. So I haven't tested any of that stuff yet because, frankly, I'm going to sit and wait until the actual release happens, because I don't know what they might bring in, what might disappear. So it's one of those things that we'll wait till it's actually released. And as a partner, this has been a very interesting evolution, because everything used to be set in stone, and you knew what was coming, and you knew what to expect, and we would get our early drops, and we knew if it was in the early drop, it was going to be in the final, and that's not
Right.
necessarily that's not necessarily the case anymore. So it makes it more difficult. You almost have to be more pragmatic about what you're gonna build on. You've got to make sure that there's a vision there, that you're pretty confident that it's going to go somewhere. You look at all these things. System Center team's kind of classic for this. All these people that have done things with the app controller. I almost feel sorry for them because that's actually been announced that it's like, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, we sold that one to you, and now we're going to take it away. So it's always a gamble. It's always a gamble from that standpoint. DSC, I can't kind of still watch the X modules. If you go over to the community, you can pick up my Hyper-V module over to the community, because I was kind of annoyed with the X Hyper-V module, and that I told them when I spoke with the PowerShell team, I said you should have called it the VM module, because it really doesn't do anything with Hyper-V. It's about setting up a VM environment. So
okay, yeah.
I played with that, so it actually you can configure your Hyper-V server with it, which is what you would expect you could do, not just take a VHD and make VMs, right?
So, what did you make and where did you put it?
That's in the community. Where is that? That's in the community repository on GitHub.
Oh,
so there's
gotcha. Yeah.
So there's a C Hyper-V module out there, which was actually the first DSC module that I went with, because I went with a product that I was very familiar with, and decided to run from there.
Okay, gotcha. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm looking to find the Hyper-V stuff. All right, I found it. I've got a link that I will drop into the chat room and the show notes. There we go.
There you go.
So,
app controller.
do
Do you not know what app controller is, Hal?
I actually don't know. I did. The only System Center work I've done to an extent would be SCOM. I never touched SCCM. I don't know what app controller. I've never actually heard of app controller, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's a bolt-on. It was a bolt-on for SCVMM. So now we've got Windows Azure Pack. So really, all you need to worry about is Windows Azure Pack, and it's unique behavior.
I see. Yeah, we had somebody to talk about the Azure Pack on several months back.
I think it's been like 2 years ago.
Okay, many months back.
Yeah, I wonder if we've done that more than once, because I think it was pretty early in Azure Pack when we were talking about it on the show, if I remember right, and it's become more and more kind of a part of System Center.
Episode 258 with Jim Britt.
Oh, 258, that's not too long ago. Well,
Jim, that sounds about right. He was probably talking about automation, since that's kind of what he does now.
Yeah. I can't find the date on this stupid blog post here. I'm sure it's in here somewhere.
But yeah,
February.
The Azure Pack from a virtualization standpoint continues to evolve. So lately I've been playing with Docker and containers and Linux build scripts. So that's,
Ooh.
Oh yeah, that's a royal pain in the butt. But containers are fun. Everybody, if you know machine virtualization, you need to start playing with containers, because you can do some
totally agree.
really interesting stuff with containers if you just kind of stretch your mind about what they are.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be working. I'm going to be doing something with containers next week. Got a hackathon at my company. Will be the project I'm working on will have something to do with containers.
Will have something to do with containers.
Something to do with containers. Yes. So, question in the chat room about Azure Pack. Actually, I don't know if this is one for you or if something we'll have to get a follow up on it from Microsoft or not.
Well,
but,
you're going to have to get a follow up from Microsoft to get an answer to it. So I'll go ahead and read it. If
okay.
Azure Pack is going to talk to Azure anytime soon. It's been hinted at, but nothing has been revealed. As we know in blogs and everything else, nothing's been revealed in regards to that. And App Controller was kind of sold as your front end, where you could deal with SCVMM on the private side, or you could deal with Azure on the public side, and it would manage it at a single point. And Azure Pack is not designed to do this. They've been teasing us with the gallery
Well, they
images.
teased you with the name of it, you know?
Yeah. So the gallery item that I created, one of the reasons that I created it is because Microsoft has been teasing us with the ability to take an Azure Pack gallery image and put it in Azure. So you could use the same image in both places because you've got the exact same deployment model going on. And we're still waiting for that to happen. So they decided to build this resource group in Azure in the meantime. So now we're waiting for resource groups to come to Azure Pack. So it's interesting watching the whole thing, because it's just constant feature flow.
So it's been a while since we've talked about Azure Pack, and my last understanding of Azure Pack is it was essentially a way to give you an Azure-like functionality for your private cloud. Is that still the case, or is it kind of evolved beyond that?
No, it's still the Azure experience for the private cloud. They're tailoring it to the target market is large enterprises, and from a lot of the fellow MVPs in the Hyper-V area outside of the U.S., it's actually seems to be getting pretty decent traction to use it for people to manage their deployments and machines and self-service and all that kind of jazz. It lacks a few things still, and it's got its strangeness, and some people have figured out how to build gallery images that can do unique things, but it's still coming along.
So in your experience of working with DSC, do you have any tips for people that are kind of getting started?
The biggest thing is you really need to know what your end target is. You need to work through basic configurations. Decide whether you want to do push or pull. So doing a push configuration when you're testing stuff out and figuring it out is really nice and really easy. Doing a pull configuration is a little more complicated, but when you start to work through that model, you learn a little bit, actually quite a bit more about the power of this DSC thing and the fact that it can pull for its configuration, and you can just change it at the central point, and it just manages it. If you want to take that same configuration and push it into Azure, you can just up and do that too, and pick an image and go through the PowerShell interface for Azure, and you can push it up there. So now, one of the big problems that you run into, though, is if you're not doing just native stuff to the operating system, all of a sudden you instantly run into a problem of media, which is one of the big problems that I keep running into, because our media is 3 gigs, and so that doesn't package well, and all of a sudden you're in a scenario where there might not be an SMB share. There might not be, you've got to now figure out how you're going to deal with a download endpoint and all this other stuff, and how you're going to package your world before you push your world. So in my blog with our DSC, I went through a bunch of models where, one, I'm downloading the media set out of blob storage using DSC. I'm streaming it down. I did some models where I streamed it off of the pull server, where I did a bunch of other things. And then you run into size problems because it's over 2 gigs. So now you've got to do it in some ways over the top of other ways. But actually, from a a third-party ISV standpoint, that's actually one of the big hurdles is dealing with media, and then when you get into configuration, dealing with some of the limitations of how the applications configure. But a lot of the examples that are out there, there's a lot of good examples, and then usually my biggest critique of a lot of the Microsoft stuff that comes out is you've either got the overly simple example or you've got the overly complex example, and you don't have a realistic example.
Yeah. You get the cupcake example.
Exactly. Or you get the websites, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm looking at this from an enterprise perspective. I'm not going to stand up, a cupcake website, doing this stuff. I'm going to, install this application package. I'm going to configure this way. I'm going to lock down the firewall in this way. I'm going to, I might harden a server with DSC, but I don't know that I'll necessarily stand up a website with DSC, right?
Yeah. But I think, to some extent, some of that is to demonstrate the self-healing mechanism within DSC. The apply and autocorrect type of functionality. It demos really well for that type of scenario, much more so than some of the other things. Registry changes or application installations or things like that. So that may be part of it.
Personally, I can't wait until I can use it on Linux machines, or I should say even possibly Linux devices. So just because there's a Linux OS there, and I could apply a configuration to it, I'm actually kind of looking forward to that.
I know they've demoed some of that with DSC, but I don't know how far along the functionality has come. I would think it'd be easier on Linux because it's kind of a file-based operating system.
It's easier to wrap your brain around what's going on than it is in Windows, just because the way you're used to looking at Windows. And that's from the Windows standpoint, that's just people kind of getting their heads around there.
I've heard the scheduled tasks are going away in DSC. So
why would scheduled tasks go away?
Well, not scheduled tasks.
Oh, the way that they.
But DSC today is driven by scheduled tasks. That check that happens periodically, that's a scheduled task. That's basically poking a sim method or a class, and that process. And there's two of them that basically call the same thing with different parameters. And there's one that happens, when you boot, and then there's one that happens every 15 minutes. And when Jeffrey Snover was on, he has said that method is going away, and they're going to a more robust way of, triggering the DSC configuration, the configuration checks, rather than using scheduled tasks. He actually said what the technology was, but I don't remember what he said off the top of my head.
And you know what? That'll probably help, because I know today when you're testing stuff and you fire something off in the background, and it's a relatively long running process that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Unless you're sitting there and you turned on tracing and you're watching a trace, you have no clue what the heck is going on, and that's a little bit getting used to as well when you start fiddling with DSC. The fact that it's darn difficult to figure out what's going on. It's difficult to figure out where your failure was and what your and what your failure was. And now all of a sudden you've got to start to deal with diagnostics. Thank heavens for that diagnostics and tracing module. Quite honestly, that's the most valuable thing anybody can figure out how to use when they start fiddling with DSC, because you can really drill into a lot of errors.
Especially
who did we talk to about that, Jonathan? Was that on the Jeffrey Snover show?
It may have been Steve Morales.
We talked about it recently, and maybe a couple times then.
You and I talked about it.
Okay.
DSC troubleshooting. I kind of went on not a rant, but I spent some time talking about that process. But especially when you're building your own resources, if there's a problem and it errors out, it will in a lot of cases, it will keep your configuration from applying successfully. It'll just stop at that point, and it won't apply anything else. And, you'll do get DSC configuration, and it'll say, you don't have one, even though it's like partially applied. And sometimes, figuring out, okay, well, exactly what was it expecting that it didn't get, or it generated an error that caused it to break, that kind of stuff you can get in the weeds for sure. And sometimes, you'll go to apply a configuration, and it'll say that, what perform configuration checks is in process. So you've got to, figure out what's running and either kill it or wait until it finishes. Yeah.
So Lars in the chat room is reminding us that yes, we did go, that Jeffrey Snover did go into this, some of this stuff as well. So that was episode 290 for folks who want to go back to that if you missed it. Not that you should be missing any of the Jeffrey Snover shows in particular.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Especially when he's talking about the new version. Because he usually says stuff that doesn't, that's new information.
Yes. Yes, he will drop news, which we enjoy.
Well, so it's when you get people that are in that position, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I could have anybody else from Microsoft on the show, and they would be like, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. And then Jeffrey will say, what the hell? And then he'll answer the question. So, do you want to talk about this bit stuff, Brian, as far as handling media?
There's not a lot from a bit standpoint.
Played with it.
I did it from. I didn't use bits because, frankly, there's not a resource for bits. Bits has its own issues. It's got its own way of handling jobs. You can move your priority up. You can nick flood a Windows box by putting bits at full priority. And there's not many network services that run in Windows beyond network backup agents that will flood a NIC on a Windows box. But you can do it with bits.
That's good to know. So next time you want to
it's the background intelligent with quotes transfer.
Exactly. At its normal priority, it could take 10 days, and you put it at full priority, and you get great speed. But all of a sudden, you're losing WMI calls, and you can get other strange things that happen.
Yep. So, what is the actual bits? Command line that we need to use, that we need to recommend that everyone use at the same time at their offices. All right, ready, everybody?
Actually,
3, 2, 1. Hit enter.
Just remote into anybody's box. Start 2 foreground bits jobs, and they're gonna wonder why they can't do anything on the network.
It's Lars in the chat room. You can also max out a company's internet circuit with bits, or so I've heard.
Oh, gosh.
I'm sure you can.
Nice. Well, that's too bad. Now I want for there to be a bits resource, so at least it would be a little more transparent, to handle within DSC.
Yeah, I don't know that would necessarily make sense, though. I mean, you would use it to configure bits.
Well, I was thinking about, is there not a file management?
There is a remote file resource, but it is, the last thing I knew, it was still one of the X resources.
Mm-hmm. And you can't depend on those.
So I couldn't take a dependency on it because it was an X resource, but anybody that's doing stuff internally at their company, sure, they can do that if they want to do that. In a position like I'm in, I couldn't build a dependency on that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do understand that. So, are you familiar with the PowerShell gallery and what Microsoft's doing there with PowerShell Get?
I've followed it, and I haven't had a chance to play with it because I've been just busy with other things. I'm actually very interested in it, and its potential to do, to set up, private galleries and
it
all
is
that kind
it
of
is
stuff.
very compelling, the aspect of just typing in install dash module space, whatever, xgia,
Exactly. Especially lately, I've been doing all these Linux build stuff, and you're just like, okay, apt get this package and handle all the dependencies, and get this package and handle all that. That's nice, right?
Yes, it is very nice. So my next question would be, when are you going to get your XenDesktop stuff in the PowerShell gallery? Come on.
I don't necessarily know. Let's just say I would love to release some of my stuff open source. I really would, and I'm really not able to do that. Let's just put it that way.
Well, what about your Hyper-V one that you've got on GitHub?
The Hyper-V one's out there. I've got no problem with that. The Citrix specific
that's just a
stuff.
packaging thing, I guess.
Yeah,
That's probably just a packaging thing of hey, let's take a drop of the the community DSC resources and push them over to the gallery.
Oh, did they actually do that?
I don't know that they have.
Okay.
Because I looked for Hyper-V stuff on the gallery and I didn't see any, except for Microsoft's.
Yeah, unless somebody. But as far as I know, it's still there. But as far as over in the gallery, no, I haven't put it over in the gallery. And there's no community Hyper-V stuff over there that I've known of.
So I was just thinking it might make sense to whomever, Dave Wyatt, Steve Morawski, or somebody, to just kind of get all go ahead and grab all of the DSC resources and push them over.
Yeah, personally, you'll probably see some stuff from me out of containers at some point in the future, but that'll be interesting from that standpoint.
I like containers. I'm looking forward to being able to talk about whenever we figure out what it is that Microsoft's going to be doing in that space, because they've hinted that they will be doing things there, and you're seeing that they're participating in the Docker project, as far as doing things with Linux VMs in Azure. So really cool stuff that's coming.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to talk about stuff that I can't talk about now.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. So we're going to have that guy on the show whenever he's ready to talk about things. I've already prearranged that.
Oh, nice
so
work, Cal.
Look for that. Upcoming.
Excellent.
Yes. So, where should we send people to learn about the things that you like to talk about and create at Citrix and elsewhere?
Usually my blog, itproctology.blogspot.com.
I was wondering if we were going to be reading that.
Is where you're going to find most of it. So, it's blocked in China, by the way. I didn't know that till somebody in the TechNet forums. I sent them a link to my blog one day, and he's like, "I'm in China. I can't get to that."
Wow.
But actually, that's a moniker that I came up with back when I was in the IT trenches, back before I came to work in the software business.
Go ahead.
There, you'll generally find most of the stuff that I'm up to, or stuff that I find that's curious on solutions that I discover. But generally, if it's related to something I'm working on and I can post it, it'll be there.
Cool. And anything else you want to promote while we have you?
No. So if DSC with XenDesktop is interesting to people, or if the SCVMM service templates are interesting to people, or if the Azure Pat Gallery image is interesting to people, I would love to get feedback on that so I can feed it over to the product teams. Personally, I think DSC with Citrix products is very interesting, but we like to hear feedback from the greater world, of course.
Awesome. So do you have to own a license in order to download these?
No, you do not.
Download them.
I believe you do have to create an account within our system, and that's so our marketing people can track downloads. But you do not need to have an active license.
All right, cool. So that'll at least give you a wider base of people, perhaps, to get feedback from.
Exactly.
Excellent. So we've got one final question for you, Brian. And this is a question that we ask everyone who comes on the podcast. If you could be a superhero or have superpowers, who would it be and why?
I think it would. I think it would be the power of understanding, and that is just it's from a communication standpoint. Just to help people understand what's going on and the reason why. And I know with my blogging and stuff, that's some people in the forums hate it because I don't just give them the point and click answer. I actually try to explain the why behind something. Mm-hmm. And
does that annoy people?
I have had people in the forums get annoyed with me because I won't give them the point and click answer. I'll explain the reason why and why they should do something a different way, and they're like, just give me the monkey answer. Just click here and click there. And I'm like, no, have a clue.
Yeah, I'm not going to do your homework for you.
I understand why you're doing it this way because the monkey can point and click. So if you understand why, then you can do it in that, whatever situation you need to do it in, and all of a sudden you'll understand why you need to do it that way or why you need to think about it from that perspective.
So it's not so much that you want the power to understand things; it's the ability to convey understanding on other people.
There you go.
So you're going to be wielding a clue bat.
Yeah, the great clue hammer.
Bam. Understand what I'm trying to explain to you. This was a fun show, Brian. Thanks a lot for coming on and spend time with us.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Thanks a lot, man. We will... Jonathan does some post-production stuff, and the episode will be posted to the website before too long, and we'll send you a link and all that stuff when it's up.
All right, cool.
We have a question if you're a Daniel Goleman fan.
I honestly can't say.
Like, you can't say because you're in Citrix Labs?
That's classified.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, you labs people.
You know what? When you work in an R&D division, it's most MVPs have no clue what I do because I'm not very open and forward about the stuff that I work on because I can't be. But a lot of people at Microsoft know what I'm working on. So I have at least 6 NDAs.
Wow.
Just between me and Microsoft. And they're many different levels. And actually, my MVP one is one of my more open NDAs. It's the least restrictive of all the ones that I have.
Wow.
Yeah, I only got the one with Microsoft. But yeah, I do get it. I work at an ISV as well, so I do get it.
Yeah, so you get it. Yeah, there's stuff you can talk about and stuff you can't talk about. So
Yep. For real. All right. Well, it's been fun. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Again sometime when you can talk about things that, as they are released.
There's new stuff going on. So hopefully in the near future, as I work through a number of JSON web requests and some container work, it'll come out of that. So.
By all means, anytime you drop something new, shoot us a line or whatever. We'd be happy to have you back on to talk about those things. Anything PowerShell, man.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right. Talk to you later.
Yep.
Is your back okay, Hal?
Yeah, why?
Oh, you just keep standing up, and I'm not used to seeing you do that.
I could not tell you why I keep standing up, but you're right. I have been kind of moving around a little bit. I don't know, man.
Well, that's good. I'm glad your back's not hurting.
My back's fine. I'm doing a new podcast.
Really?
Yes, for work.
Awesome.
Yes, I know. It's going to be cool. It will be the Splunk Dev podcast. And I don't have a website yet. I don't have anything yet. But next week, I mentioned I'm going to a hackathon thing.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an offsite with a bunch of Splunk folks and a bunch of developers. And I'm going to do my first set of interviews there. And then working with like marketing and things like that as far as,
Oh, when you say you're doing it,
website
you're doing it. You're producing it and the whole nine.
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
sweet.
Exactly. Yep. So I have to learn how to do some of the things that you've been doing
right, yeah.
for so long. Like audio editing and things like that.
Reaper. That's
Reaper.
Reaper.fm. That's the recording software I use. If you want to do multi-track, which I don't know if it would make sense for you to do or not, but it's.
I will check it out. I think did I install it?
I know at some point it seemed like you were looking at it.
I did.
That was a while ago.
Did. Oh, I know. I tried to install it, and
Yeah, they've got a Mac version.
I'm in Windows right now.
Okay.
What is it called? Yeah, install package. Yep. I remember what it was. I was actually trying to install it the other day, and the Reaper website was down. So when the chocolatey call to go grab the downloader failed.
Reaper's in chocolatey?
Yes, it is.
That's awesome. I did not know that.
Everything. There's actually quite a bit in there now.
Wow.
Yeah, like here, I just did it. Like you just missed it. It was just downloading and it's installing right now.
Yeah, it's a small package for
it's done.
The functionality.
Let's see. Chocolatey Reaper. Okay, there we go. There. But yeah, if you look at a lot of the packages, they are simply downloading the installer from the vendor's website and running it in with the right parameters to make it headless.
Yeah.
All right, I have Reaper up now.
Cool.
And I love that I did not have to, download some MSI and da. All right, cool. I will play with this. Thank you for the reminding me of its existence. My problem is I cannot wrap my brain around some of the interface elements that it seems like all of these use.
Yeah, it does take some time. There's definitely a learning curve.
Yeah. And I'm not stupid.
Right, yeah.
I feel like this is harder than it ought to be.
Yeah.
Anyway,
absolutely.
I'll work on it. All right, but I'm excited about that. That should be cool. Anything going on with you?
Nothing new.
Still at Home Depot?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, we're trying to staff up our team actually.
Oh, cool. Have you talked to Trey Morgan at all lately?
No.
He was pinging me earlier today. Hold on, this is relevant. Let me pull it up because it was relevant. Let's see.
I know Garth Maynard was trying to get a hold of you last week, I think it was.
I emailed him back,
okay.
But it took me a few days. But he's not replied back to me. So I don't know for sure that he got my replies or not. Okay, so do you have to be
in Austin?
He is, yeah.
Okay.
Do you have
I usually work with Jeremiah on that team.
REO at 11?
Do I what?
Are you available tomorrow at 11?
Let me look. I think that may be when we have our staff meeting. Yeah, I have a staff meeting at 11.
Okay. What about 2:30?
Yeah, between
Wait.
2:30 and 3, I'm open.
30. Anyway, I'll ask him to maybe check your calendar or something like that. Anyway, he was doing some stuff with PowerShell, getting some doing searches against Splunk from PowerShell.
Oh, okay.
If you're not interested, then never mind. But,
No, that sounds very interesting.
but he's the is he still doing SCOM stuff? I don't know. I don't know if you've ever worked with him, but
Who, Trey or Garth?
he was the guy. Trey.
As far as I know, he's still, he and Jeremiah are the SCOM team.
Okay, gotcha.
Or the SCOM engineers.
He inherited it after I left.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm meet with him tomorrow. Just gonna help him go through the code and stuff like that.
Cool.
But I don't have time to do it. But I'm going to help him out because he's a cool guy. Yeah, that's it. I have people pinging me in different windows now, so I should probably leave. And I should probably sleep at some point too.
These things are important.
Yes. I have so much to do tomorrow, and I'm out of town next week. All right, I'll figure it out.
Okay. So we're not recording next week? We're kind of on the every other week?
Well, I'm out of town next week anyway, so
Okay.
I was not going to plan on scheduling anybody next week.
Okay. Because if we do kind of every other week with interviews, then I can do, on the alternate weeks, I can drop those news shows in, and then we're more consistent in the feed.
That would be cool. I think that is a good idea. A very good idea. Cool. All right. Well, good night, and talk to you next time.
All right. Good night, everybody.
People chat room. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.